Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Catherine Walters, and I'm the host of this telesummit series, Joyful You. And I'm a joy coach and intuitive healer. And in my business, Guided Change, I help people who are stressed and overwhelmed experience more joy and happiness in their lives. And I'm so excited because I get to bring to you 22 amazing experts who share their tips and tools and strategies in their field that can help you experience more vitality, positivity, happiness, fun, play, and joy too. Now, joining me today is Lenore. And Linda has more than 30 years of experience as working as a leading international authority on feng shui. She's renowned for her expertise in creating corporate and home environments that both stimulate success and soothe the soul. For soothing the soul, we're going to feel more joy. Linda wrote the best-selling book, The Gift of the Red Envelope, and she's here to share her expertise with each of us to help you experience more joy and happiness in your life. So welcome, Linda. Thank you for being here and for your willingness to share your expertise in feng shui so we can all experience more joy and happiness.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm delighted to be here. This is going to be so much fun.
Oh, it is. We were having fun even in our conversation ahead of time, so let's go for it. Now, so Linda, many people I know are familiar with your field of feng shui, but can you, for those viewers that, like you probably have your own definition that would bring clarity to it, especially with your experience. So what is feng shui?
Well, feng shui itself is an ancient philosophy from Asia. The words themselves refer to wind and water. Feng is wind, shui is water. And those are the two elements that have carved out the landscaping, that have created the mountains and the canyons. And it's also the two elements that we need to live, the vital chi for us to be able to thrive, the air to breathe and water to drink. The concept of feng shui is how do we create an environment that will support us and protect us and actually bring all the good to us and repel negative energy. So originally the emperor, the high government officials were the only ones that benefited from feng shui. They would have the male master telling them what to do or where to build the building, and they would incorporate all the positive things for good feng shui within the environment with the idea that that good energy then will ripple out to the rest of the countryside or the township, whatever governing entity they had. Today what we have is we're taking some of the ancient history of feng shui and we're also melding it together with the sciences that we know and the spirituality of the individual so that we're creating a space that is uniquely for them, that brings them the best energy and repels some negative energy from them if there happens to be any, or to clear out negative energy. Also to really help directionalize what it is that they want in their life. So we do things like that within their homes or within their offices so that it's very, very personalized to them. And if they have a spiritual side that they want to represent and focus in on, that's great. And if not, then we do it without using spirituality or religion. So that's kind of my take on it. Besides that, I'm also an interior designer. I have an interior design background. So everything that I do from feng shui, I'm looking at it from the perspective of how do we make the space look really great. It's not having so many of the objects that you might hear or see from traditional feng shui, but it is more what works for you personally and then doesn't scream feng shui, but actually blends everything together so that it feels really good. So people walk into the space and say, wow, what have you done here? What's going on here? And they just feel how wonderful the energy is.
Right. I love that. I think it's it feels more like a natural, holistic type of approach where you're blending the two. So it's not just like an interior design show place where you don't want to sit and touch and be comfortable. It sounds like by bringing the two elements, combining interior design and feng shui, you're making it more like relaxing, more soothing, more natural. So people can actually feel comfortable, whether they're comfortable if they want to be comfortable at home. Mm-hmm. And then if it's at work, then the energy I'm wondering the energy might be different in that, yes, you want to be comfortable, but also productive and successful.
Yes.
So
in a, I do feng shui in corporations, and very often what we're doing is how do we make the space so that it is more productive for the individual. Maybe it means that we are getting rid of some clutter, or we're helping them to organize the space a little bit differently so that it's both ergonomically correct for them as well as functionally correct for them, and then also bringing in some beauty so that they have a reason to bring that energy of who they are into full bloom to be as productive as they can.
Right. And I love that piece about the beauty, because to me, beauty, when we have like beauty around us, that brings us closer to joy.
Yes.
We want to see that. We want it fills us up, or we can look at it when we're having a stressful, moment or a difficult phone call or something like that. And like maybe I think you have some objects there where, what would you do when you have a stressful moment? You're in your office or you're at home, your children are crying, and you want to pull your hair out. How can feng shui help us at those like crazy moments?
Having an anchor, something that represents a particular quality, is really, really great. One of the objects that I showed to you earlier is a picture of one of my grandsons at Disneyland with cars. Now, this is about 3 years ago, and I just happened to get him right by the car and took a photo of it. Now, something like that you would have on your desk would be something that would remind you of, okay, I'm working all these long hours, and this is how I get to reap the rewards by going on vacations with children or with grandchildren or with a loved one. So that's always a great way of doing it. If there's something that is going on within a space that may not feel really comfortable, if you're in a work environment, if you can bring in a spiritual object that represents something to you, then that's always wonderful. A very dear friend of mine gave me an angel. Now, that may be something that a person can bring into a workspace, but they may not be able to display it readily for someone. It may be something that they have to tuck into a drawer so that when they open up the drawer to get some pencils out or to get something out, they see it and it reminds them. Then again, it might be something that can be left out and displayed. It just depends upon the work environment as to what their guidelines are and things like that. But something along that line that either brings joy or anchors a person in a spiritual situation, that is perfect object to bring in.
Oh, that's neat, because I can remember. I mean, I worked in a public library years ago, and we really only had like a very small office space. It was pretty much like basically a closet, if I want to be honest. And there was no space for any of that. And so I ended up wearing like, some sort of jewelry or something that, like a mala bracelet to have, as that memento, that thing to connect me. But but here you're saying I could have had like a statue or a photograph or something like that in my filing cabinet drawer.
Yes.
So I could just look at that and I know that would have elevated my mood or reassured me or whatever else I might have needed in those stressful times. Linda, what can people do at home? And we have a lot of stressed and busy moms that are also viewing this. So what can we do at home?
Creating a sacred space is a great idea for anyone that wants something like that. It can be something very fancy, a very large altar, a table that a person has with lots of objects out on it. Or it may be that because of young children, you've got to be careful. You don't want something to be broken, or you don't want them to get something they put into their mouth. So it may be a drawer and a dresser that's high up, or a shelf that you create. And then you just have a little space on that. I don't know if the audience will be able to see this, but my bookcase behind me, I have a number of objects back there that have special meaning to me. And I've brought some of them down here to be able to show more specifically. But having something like that, if you're lucky enough to have a whole dresser or bookshelf that you can have for displaying objects, that's wonderful. But oftentimes it may just be the smallest drawer in the dresser, and you just have a few little objects that have special meaning to you that you go to when you need that moment of, what am I going to do? You go, breathe, and maybe you hold something. You mentioned earlier that you have something that you hold. Well, I have something that I hold also, and that may be something that helps to calm you. They have the worry beads that you might use, or any number of things that
right.
is your
I know. Yeah, like, well, worry beads. I hold a little lilac lapidolite skull, but I also have a heart, a rose quartz heart. So they're when I'm nervous or full of energy and I want to be more grounded or calmer. I call them my toys, but they're right here on my workspace. And so if I'm on the phone coaching someone or just busy and I need a break, or just need something to feel more grounded, for me, it really helps to have these representations from the earth. And I think there is. You mentioned earlier, right, in your definition of feng shui, with the wind and the water.
Mm-hmm.
So that I'm assuming the elements must have quite a bit to do with feng shui.
Yes, actually they do. In the Asian traditions, there are 5 elements that are used throughout acupuncture and a number of the healing modalities. And so bringing in any of those elements will help tremendously. Wind is not technically one of the elements as it is in some of the more the native cultures. The 5 elements, just to give you a brief idea, would be wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. An object made out of any of those materials will help you with whatever they have. Each have their own quality, and we don't really have time to go into all of that, but they each have a quality, and it might be that you do bring in something from the earth because it does to help ground you, or it may be that you have a water feature, a little water fountain, or maybe it's just a goldfish bowl, so that there's more of a soothing flow of life that can occur. And so all those would be things that you could bring into both a home or into an office environment in most cases. Now, obviously, again, a goldfish bowl, if you've got toddlers, it probably needs to be up high, or you need to use common sense with all of this. But that's something that you can do. A couple of the other things that I do that I have around me is because I have a tendency of getting very, very focused on things, get very intent. Just kind of the background that I have being analytical, and then some of my personal experiences. And so I bring in things that have to do with fun and magic. So I have my little wizard to remind me of playing and creating magic at any moment. And I'm very lucky that I have a grandson that was actually born on St. Patty's Day. So I've got my pot of gold and 4-leaf clover. So things like that may also be something. And a stuffed animal that you have, that could be any place. And the children, even if they're around, they see it. It may be something that you ask them not to play with, but then again, it may be something that you encourage them to play with so that it becomes a family joy. My son loved giraffes. He called them tall necks. And you get a sense of that when you come into my house, because I've got several stuffed animals. I've got several statues of giraffes around the house. And so it's, when you first walk into the house, there's this joy, there's this uniqueness. It's not the interior design, perfect environment that you can't live in. It's very definitely come in here, relax, enjoy yourself, and have fun.
Oh, I love that. And I think, I kind of usually limit my stuffies, I call them stuffies, bears, into the bedroom, but I do have a huge collection. And I also use them when I was a children's library. We always had stuffies that the children could take off of the shelves and hold. And some were book character related and others not. But I always found that having that, it made it more their space. And, they enjoyed that. They liked that. It made them feel a part of it, that it wasn't, that it was touchable. It was, because sometimes, you don't want to pull every book off of the shelf, but, they can play with a stuffy and that's fine. So I really appreciate the little objects, because it's making it, sometimes I think we feel that, maybe it's just my opinion, I shouldn't say this, but where it's feng shui can be more off-limits. If I don't do it right, I've got to have it in this corner and, this across from the door and all of that, which personally I can't keep straight. But I do like having the drawer or the space or these things of beauty, because that's doable for anybody.
Yes. Yes. And one of the things that I talk about in some of my different presentations is about having the pathway to joy. There's different pathways that are set up within our household, but the energy starts outside the house. Mm-hmm. So what I'd like to have people do is just take an inventory of when they park their car, how does it feel from where they park the car until they get inside the house. Now, if someone's parking their car in the garage, they may actually need to do a little bit more work because there may be some things in that garage that are not really bringing the joy and good energy to them. So I actually encourage people to actually walk from the street to their house. Pretend like you're a visitor parking on the street or in the parking lot of the apartment complex or whatever it happens to be, and just kind of take an inventory. How many beautiful bushes are there? Where are there flowers? Is there a plant that has a beautiful fragrance to it? Is there a statue or a wind chime or water? Just take inventory, and then all the way up to their front door. What can they put by their front door that is going to bring them joy, make them smile? Is it that little gnome that they put there? Or is it the statue of the dog or the duck that they have? Or is it a beautiful flower that they bring in and place there? Is it a welcome mat that says welcome on it? Or wipe your feet? Or how do you express who you are right there by the door so that it's your joy and your authenticity that's being expressed in that location? And then as soon as you open up that door, what else can you do that it brings a brightness to your eyes, a smile to your face, raises your energy? Maybe it's something that has a beautiful fragrance. Maybe it's something that you see that makes you smile, some bright colors, whatever it happens to be, so that you're literally bringing the energy, the good energy, from the out of doors up to the front door and into the house. And then just to kind of wrap things up, one of the areas using one of the schools of feng shui, because there's about a dozen different schools, is in the right-hand side, in the middle section of the right-hand side of the house. And so what do you have in that area, or what could you bring into that area that would make you smile? I have a beautiful stained glass window that we were able to create when we had to do a remodeling. And that it lights up the space. It happens to be on the east side of the house. And the sun streaming through that first thing in the morning just makes my heart sing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can imagine that. That would be absolutely beautiful, especially when the sun is filtering through that. It'd be almost like being in a church. That. But again, it's that sacredness. It's that beauty. Which, I mean, the thing I love about all of this is that these are all practical. I mean, any of us can do these. And it makes sense as you approach something, because that it says so much. So, like we look at it with office spaces. There, most companies are, their headquarters, let's say, they'll have fountains and something really quite unique and special, so that when their visitors or their employees, anyone who is approaching, feel that sense of who they are. And so you're saying the same thing for our homes, is to put our identity, put our authenticity, not only inside but also outside.
Yes. Let people know who you are from as far out as you can, realistically. Obviously there's some situations when it's not your land, or if you put something out there, it's going to disappear, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So being realistic as to what you can do, but create something that makes you feel wonderful. I'm very, very blessed to have a house that has a pond and a waterfall. And we actually made it very, very inviting for the neighborhood to come and to actually sit down there. We have several daycares, and the children come. There's a little bridge, and they come and they look at that. And I'm really lucky because my office faces out on that. So I can look out there, and even if I'm having a not so great day, or something is just really gotten to me for some reason or another, seeing the children, and they're looking at the fish in the pond, it just brings such joy. So whenever you can bring children in around your space also, that usually is a great way. Or think about what would attract the energy of a child to that space.
Right. And that's so true. I mean, it's like I have a butterfly thing that can fly, and it's right outside in one of my plants. And so that it's like and it's purple. So it's purple and turquoise. So it's very bright, and I see that right away. And then there's everybody who comes to my door, there's like a little elephant with a sound, like little bells or something. Mm-hmm. And every single person plays with it. No one ever knocks on my door. They always play with the little sound piece, and the wind plays with it too. So it's very fun, but it brings that sort of lightness and joy, which is, it really does. So it makes a lot of sense. So Judith, we've talked a lot about all the tricks. I think that any other tricks, because you were telling me earlier that you have tricks up your sleeves. So anything else that you didn't mention that you'd like to mention?
One of the things that we often need to do with a space, especially if you see that there's a consistent kind of low energy, is that we need to raise the vibration of the space. And we can do that through objects, but we can also do it sometimes with a musical instrument or playing music that will also raise the vitality, or doing something with some aromatherapy. There's various types of essential oils that can be used, and you can spritz them around, and that will also help to raise the energy. So that would be another possibility. Sometimes I will take a bell or a wind chime and I'll just ring it through the house, or in businesses I will suggest, if you've had a disgruntled customer, maybe you go through it with the bell, and that will just clear out that negative energy and starts raising the vibration. So that'd be another little quick trick.
Okay, now that brings me, it makes me think of, what do we do about, one of the things I think that kind of lowers energy is like all the stuff, like clutter, mail, books piled up, papers. What happens with all of that, and what do you recommend? What does Feng Shui recommend for our clutter?
Well, clutter, as you have mentioned, can create stagnant energy and pull the energy down. It is one of the big challenges that we have. And in our society, with all the different information that we get in many different forms, we just get overwhelmed. It's hard for us to process all that information and to keep things organized. I'm not a professional organizer, but I am a member of the National Association of Professional Organizers. So I would strongly suggest that either talk to me and I can give you some tips about it. I also, actually, the free offer is along that line. There are lots of different things that we can do. And very often what happens with clutter is that it's some kind of an energy that's not agreeing with you. And it may be that it's the person on the other side of the cubicle wall that you just don't get along with. And so what you're doing is you're putting up a wall of paper of your stuff to kind of create a barrier energetically between the two. So sometimes what we can do is just put up some hearts on that wall, or bring in, like you said, you have a rose quartz heart, bring something like that in, and that starts bringing the energy of love into the space. And actually, by bringing in the energy of love, sometimes that will help to clear the clutter. Sometimes just some of the logical things, only handle a piece of paper once, have the round file, the wastebasket right there, get rid of it as quickly as possible. But actually, let me just go ahead and say what I have for their offer is that I have an MP3 that is 42 minutes long, and it talks about the 22 ways that clutter affects our lives. Mm-hmm. And clutter affects us physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And there's certain little tricks sometimes that we can do to help get rid of what is kind of the anchor holding that clutter in that spot. Or there's maybe there's a place that you keep going to and you keep trying to clear it out, but reality is you don't have all the systems in place. But if you went someplace else that you've got clutter, you can actually loosen things up so that it flows and it's easier for you to get rid of the clutter. So there's some things around that I can share with people. And again, that is the free MP3 that they will get.
Oh, and that's awesome, because I know many people, I know as a coach, one of the things is people often come to me with their energy is stuck. And so, I'll recommend that they clear out, closets and so forth, or maybe they want to lose weight. And so another way to do anything you can do to get the energy moving.
Yes.
And that's where, so the clearing the clutter, whether you give it away or you, recycle it or whatever, just throw it in, as you said, the round file, anything to help move it. So those are excellent tips. I mean, I love those. And I love to have also the heart with the rose quartz, or bring the hearts in. How sweet, to just, they're not, it doesn't take it's basically, it's they're principles that I know this is all based on, but they're practical, they're beautiful, they're able to be done anywhere.
Yes. Yes. Some of the things that I have discovered that around that clutter is that when you start releasing it in some form or fashion, sometimes the clutter around the house is not just yours, there's other people's, and you don't have the ability to, or you don't want to be the nag telling them to move things. What I have found is that once a person starts to remove or start organizing their things, usually within about 4 to 6 weeks, the other person in the house starts energetically getting it without words even having to be explained or said. And so that will help as well. And oftentimes we do wind up releasing pounds and releasing old stuck energy mentally, and more things happen in our lives. In fact, one of the things in feng shui that they suggest that you do is to move, if you want to change your life, move 27 things that you haven't moved in the last year. Another thing that I heard recently that I really liked was, especially around clothing, is go through your clothing and get rid of one article of clothing every day for 40 days and then give that away. And so finding a charitable organization or somebody that can benefit from these items is always great energetically. It brings you joy. It brings them joy as well.
Right. And I've done the thing for the 27 items for like 9 days or whatever. There's a whole, it does. And I'll tell you, initially, it was really easy because, oh, sure, the clothes that you haven't worn and, the things that are torn or whatever. But as you get to like 7, 8, 9 days, it's like you start really going in deeper. What can I get rid of? What haven't I gotten rid of yet? Because 27 is a pretty big number.
Yes.
And so I found myself going through my old files and my business things that I hadn't touched in, like how many years, like you didn't really need to hold on to them anymore, or past work or something. And for myself, I noticed I felt so much lighter.
Yes.
And I had more energy. So it's something that I kind of like to do. If I'm pretty good with clutter, but like once a year, it's always a good thing to do so that just to clear my own energy. But that there's not a recommendation, I don't think, on that. If people have their own, whatever they would like to do, but it really does work.
It does. Yeah, it does make you lighter, because a lot of times that these things are in the file cabinet or and you go, why do I have that? One of these days, and you keep saying that you're going to go through it. I finally realized that one of my challenges is information, that I love knowledge, and I take seminars, and I'd have all these drawers full of stuff that I'd never look at. And then I realized that part of the reason that I never looked at them is because I really didn't connect with the individual. Now, the individual may be a wonderful individual, have all sorts of credentials, but I didn't connect with them. And so I wasn't going to follow the advice that they gave them. And when I made that discovery, I said, okay, I can release that. And then by always being around people that I do like, that are authentic, that are filled with joy, then I like what they have to say. They're things that I want to include in my life. 90% of the time, I don't need to take the notes. I don't need the material, because I've absorbed it. I become that energy.
Exactly. And that's what I'm sensing from our conversation here today. It's like, oh, I already have these things in place, but, it's always good to take that inventory again and, look through my things. And I shared at another interview that I always, when I go to clear things, it's that I always ask myself, does this give me joy? Or
Yes.
if I'm going to buy something, will this give me joy? Or like you're trying to make a decision between like this sweater and another sweater, which one fills me with more joy? Or do they both fill me with joy and you buy both of them? So it's just a way of making a decision. But it does make a difference to surround and have our homes be filled with joy. And I think that's really so much of the intent of our conversation, is to have our homes and our office spaces, and even let our yards, the rooms for our children, and not only bedrooms, but like a playroom or whatever. It's like we can do it in all those spaces, can't we?
Yes. And along that line about joy, there's some things that you wind up having because they're functional and you need to keep them, but they don't bring you joy. And sometimes what we need to do is to make the conscious decision that I'm going to figure out a way to get rid of this object and still have the organizational aspects or have the functional qualities of it by doing something different, because that piece just does not bring me the joy that I want in my life. And maybe it's something that was given to you, maybe it's something that you inherited, maybe it was something that you bought when you didn't have enough money to be able to buy things, and now you do have the money, or even if you don't have the money still, maybe there's something that you can do to change that object. Maybe you can paint it, maybe you can sand it down, maybe whatever. But just looking at all the things that you have around you that do not bring you joy, because that energy, as you walk by it, even though you may not be conscious of it, it's going to drag your energy down. And what we want to do is to raise more and more and more of the vibration.
Exactly. And it really, it is, that's a very good point, because I know my space hadn't been painted in a while, and it's an apartment. And so I asked my landlord to have it be painted. And as soon as it was repainted, and, I not only did I shift the furniture and like rearrange the whole place, which that also brought up the energy, but also having a new, paint really made a difference in my own and in my energy and people coming here. It was marvelous. I mean, it was just really a key thing. So again, these are things that we can all do, but it's being mindful that our space is a mirror. It's a reflection of who we are and how we're feeling. And so by taking care of our space, just as we would ourselves, we're uplifting not only ourselves, but for everyone else that comes into wherever we are.
Yes. Yeah, it goes back to the original aspect of feng shui, is that it was all for the emperor so that all the good would come to him, and then that would ripple out. That has the same effect. If you're happy, it will ripple out to the other people within your household. It also ripples out to the neighborhood and community.
Absolutely wonderful. Oh, Linda, we could go on and on and on and have so much fun with this. You are just a wealth of knowledge with this. But I just love how this conversation has a real impact and a connection with joy. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing all these practical, fabulous tips. I can't wait to implement some of them and look at your free offer, because that I know will be also very helpful. So everyone, again, we are so blessed to have just such a rich, wonderful conversation with our guest, Linda Lenore. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Take good care now. Namaste.